Resident Evil 4 Remake, without question, an incredible game. I mean, looking at Metacritic, the Metascore is at 93 for PlayStation 5 from 117 critic reviews. Then going to the PC version, 92%. Now, for some reason, the user score on Metacritic is a little weird. I don't know why people are review bombing this game. 6.8 user score, and then 5.1 on PC. But I think a more accurate representation of how the masses feel about the Resident Evil 4 Remake is if you look at Steam's review score of overwhelmingly positive 97% from over 37,000 reviews. I think that is a lot more representative of the sentiment surrounding this game. People generally love it. They took a masterpiece and just modernized it in all the best ways, extrapolated where they needed to extrapolate, and there might be a couple subjective things here and there where people are like, well, I prefer maybe this in the original, whatever, but at the end of the day, people are saying they took our favorite game and then made it our favorite game. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just that good. Just incredible job to the developers and the team who created this game. But then there is the corporate BS side of things. This game recently introduced microtransactions, and of course, they do it after launch. And these are not just like cosmetics or whatever. We're talking about what are essentially pay-to-win microtransactions. Scrolling down, you'll find content for this game, and you can see right here a bunch of stuff. Clicking on Browse All, what you'll find now is this whole section of additional content that you can purchase in the form of tickets that will allow you to upgrade your weapons. There are various varieties of tickets and packages that cost anywhere from $2.99 to $10, $9.99. Now, look, on one hand, I don't feel like the experience of Resident Evil 4 Remake will be severely compromised if you don't purchase microtransactions. The game is ultimately well balanced enough, but at the same time, the introduction of these pay-to-win elements, and it is pay-to-win, I mean, weapon upgrades can make a significant difference in encounters, when it comes to damage and how wieldy the gun is and all this stuff. Like, it has a noticeable gameplay impact, and if you maximize all your stuff from the outset, you're going to have a significant advantage throughout the run of a game. I don't know why you would want to compromise your experience that way by making your playthrough just less balanced, But at the same time, another aspect of it is, what we're looking at here, once upon a time, was known as cheat codes. Those have ceased to exist because companies now want you to pay for what is essentially some kind of accessibility option or some kind of fun option that players should just be able to trigger as we used to be able to back in the day. But now we have to pay for the ability to just go ham with a game. Cheat codes once upon a time would unlock after a playthrough, or you could, input some kind of code and then you'd unlock infinite ammo. You'd unlock, all weapon upgrades, whatever it is. There are ways to just like re-experience the game in a way where you could just be God, and it was just a way to add an additional lifespan to the game where you could just let loose. Companies just don't want to allow that anymore. And so that is just, while this doesn't throw the balance of the game off, it's still sad to see the death of the cheat code. And then on top of that, you've got the deceptive element of they did this after the game launched. They never hinted that microtransactions will be making their way to the game. And then post-launch, they decided to shove this stuff in here so that, reviews wouldn't take it into account or wouldn't talk about it at the very least. It's very sneaky indeed. Now, at the same time, they did recently release the Mercenaries mode for free, and that's, something that a lot of people have been having fun with. And Resident Evil 4 ultimately is still a very fun game that I think is easily going to be a contender for Game of the Year. It spruces up enough of the original where it still feels like a fresh new game, while still maintaining the important beats of the original and maintaining what we loved about the original. So all that stuff is great. The work that the developers put into it is fantastic. But, there's corporate interference that gives us just this dumb extra thing that adds a bit of a stain to the overall image of Resident Evil 4. This is far from the biggest deal in the world or the most egregious thing in the world, but just because something isn't the worst thing ever doesn't mean that it shouldn't be called out for what it is. And it is, in my opinion, that if you are paying for a, $60 to $70 game, there shouldn't be any microtransactions, especially a single-player experience. This stuff right here feels like content that's been removed from the game that they're now trying to sell you back. In this case, the content being essentially cheat codes. I feel like they should have made it so that, you can beat the game once, and then after that, you can unlock cheat codes where you can upgrade all your weapons or whatever. Obviously, if you do that, you might not be able to earn certain trophies, but for those who just want to experience all of the weapons that they prefer at a maximum level, they should just be able to toggle that, as we used to be able to back in the day. And so that's kind of unfortunate that there's a stain, and it's one of those things that it starts out like this, and then what will this become over time? Will stuff like this get more egregious in the long term? And so I think it's better to call this stuff out now and let companies know that this is just not something that people want to see become normalized in games, especially premium single-player experiences. I mean, this game has been selling super well, too. It's sold millions upon millions of copies. It's the best-selling remake Resident Evil. And so the game was going to make its money back. It was going to do good. And, there's just absolutely no need to charge people for these cheat codes. It's just a damn shame that companies sometimes do this, and I have little doubt that it's not the fault of the developers. This was a corporate decision that developers were no doubt forced to implement, even if they didn't want to. This is not experience ruining per se. I'm just more lamenting what we're losing. Old trends like cheat codes that no longer seem to be commonplace among companies who want to just squeeze every dollar by removing certain things that would have been standard back in the day. Things that could potentially make the game more fun and give it extra life for those who like to activate cheat codes. I mean, I remember that was a huge part of the fun that I had with games back in the day, where after I've experienced it how it was meant to be experienced, I could just kind of go crazy. That was just always so much fun. It's like, it's that extra bit of fun that you lose a little bit of because they want you to spend more money on a game that you've already spent plenty of money on with the price increase. And I mean, if you get the digital deluxe edition and more expensive editions, you spend even more money. And it's just like, how much more can you ask for instead of just giving it to us straight before launch day, marketing everything as it should be, instead of just surprising us by dropping something like this at the last minute, and then just diminishing something, an aspect of the game that could add an extra bit of fun by selling it back to us, instead of just allowing us to really have options in regards to how we want to experience this game. Stuff like this just puts a bad taste in my mouth. At the end of the day, of course, I'd still recommend this game very highly. I haven't beaten it, but I mean, I've gone far enough into it where I'm like, I see where the overwhelming praise comes from. And this is an excellent title, all things considered. It's far from ruined, and at the end of the day, you can always just choose to ignore the stuff and play the game properly, and you'll still have a blast, especially with the new Mercenaries mode that gives extra life to the game. But I just don't like this trend at all, which is why I'm talking about it, to just express my disappointment that these essentially cheat codes are locked behind what are exorbitant prices for, what is being offered. Stuff that, again, back in the day would have just been free. They also have some skins and whatnot. It's a little less consequential, but I personally am someone who likes to dress up their character in a badass way, and it does have, for me, an impact on my experience. The cosmetics only excuse, I don't know, for me, it's not always valid, because games are a visual medium, and so skins are, I think, an important part of that. And so, one of my rewards for partaking in all of the different activities in Marvel Spider-Man was unlocking skins, and I felt genuinely good about that. It made me want to keep playing because it felt rewarding to unlock those skins that I could cycle between and look badass. But, at the same time, this is not the biggest deal in the world. They're not anywhere near as expensive as Fortnite skins, I guess. So some people will tolerate it, but the gameplay affecting stuff is especially egregious. And this just feels like something players should be able to toggle on and off. Bring back cheat codes is what I'm trying to say. Let's just bring those back. Let's not make people pay for that in a single player experience. Obviously, in multiplayer, you don't want cheat codes. You don't want any advantage giving stuff, free or otherwise. But in the case of Resident Evil 4, it's an isolated experience, and if you want to maximize the fun, let people have all of the options instead of locking certain options and potentially accessibility feature. So yeah, I don't know, I'm just a little miffed by all of this, but I'm not trying to bring down what is very much a high quality game. That's not going to change, but it's still worth acknowledging the little scummy things, corporate, business-driven BS that's being snuck around here and there. That is not the most consequential or impactful thing in the world, but it certainly gives us a glimpse in what Capcom and higher-ups are trying to attempt and see, you know, what they can get away with. And I just don't want them to get away with this enough to the point where they're going to try to push the boundary more with future releases where they think, you know, they can push the goalpost of stuff like this and, you know, make this stuff more egregious, because it always starts kind of small and then it gets big if it becomes financially successful enough. That's how microtransactions have gotten to the point where they are now. You know, it started with horse armor. Remember those days? How bad certain microtransactions have gotten today makes me miss horse armor. And back in the day, horse armor was upsetting. But now that stuff seems almost like innocuous. It seems so innocent compared to what's happening now. And so this feels like it could potentially be the horse armor that could perpetuate more egregious schemes, which is why I'm calling this out and letting people know. Just don't buy this. Play the game as it's meant to be played. And if you have the game on PC, use trainers or something that essentially takes care of that. So that's kind of my take on this, ladies and gentlemen. I know some people just like tweet at me to talk about this, and that's kind of what I have to say about this. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on these microtransactions. I imagine that the vast majority of people will easily be able to ignore this. But again, this could have easily been just the cheat code where players can just max out all of their weapons and play the separate mode where they're just in God mode and all powerful with all of their upgrades, and allow them to just go full John Rambo on zombies' asses. You know, that's just... The more options you can give players to give them excuses to come back to a game, just the more value you give to a game. And this it devalues the game a little bit, you know what I mean? Which kind of sucks. So that's my take, but share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.